question. Morris, thank you very much. You've also built a business school in Africa. I see you there. Great to see you. Okay. So, Christine, let's start with you.
Yeah, my name is Christine Vanden Toorn, and I am the founder, along with several colleagues, of the Baghdad Business School, which is not, the name is not meant to be deceiving. It's not an MBA yet, though we may and kind of are working toward that. And it is, the project was started, we started about 3 years ago.
But sorry to interrupt, but I'll ask you to give the whole story.
Oh, yeah, I won't do that.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there.
Otherwise, you have to repeat yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, Christine. Patrick?
I am Patrick Awuah. I'm the founder and president of Ashesi University, based in Ghana. I grew up in Ghana, US, then back to Ghana to do Ashesi. Thanks, Patrick.
And Kader?
Hey, everyone. Bonjour. I am Kader Kaneye from Niger. And I work at the African Development University, which is, yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask first Patrick, and then Kader. He doesn't want to be first. And Christine last. And the question is this. Look, I know you've got a very interesting background, so maybe you could just give us a brief story of your background, very brief. And then you developed Ashesi. What were you thinking? What did you do? And in a few minutes, just share the story, because I know Ashesi is actually a really great institution. I've been there. It's impressive. So maybe you could share that.
Okay. So I grew up in Ghana and went through high school in Ghana. Decided to go to the United States for college at a time when Ghana had very significant economic challenges and political challenges. And I went to the US to study engineering. After that, went to work at Microsoft Corporation. And my first year into Microsoft, I visited Ghana for the first time. It had been 5 years by this time. And I was so disillusioned, I decided I'll never come back to Ghana to work. Came back to the US, announced to all my friends, I'm going to make my career here. But a few years later, that all changed. And it changed because my son was born. And he was born shortly after crises in Somalia and Rwanda and lots of negative news out of Africa. And it seemed to me that we needed to change the narrative coming out of Africa by changing the trajectory of Africa and for the sake of future generations. And it also seemed to me that people like me who had had a lot of opportunities should be part of that solution. And so I started to think about what to do, go back to Ghana, what to do, spoke with lots of friends and family there, and decided that changing how future leaders of our country were educated is going to be critical to a transformation. Nothing changes without leadership. It takes leadership to change something. It takes systems to maintain things. So the question of how leaders are educated is very critical. And in particular, I thought that we need to educate people who are deeply ethical, people who are problem solvers, people who connect the dots between different ideas, people who are very enterprising, entrepreneurial. And so that's what got me on this journey of establishing a new university in Ghana that seeks to do things very differently than what the norm was.
Thanks, Patrick. I mean, that's absolutely fascinating about your background and where you came from and that mission you have to make a difference, because this is a session about impact.
Right.
But could you go a little bit further? Just tell us the potted story. How did you do that? I mean, you had the idea and now you've got to invent a university. I mean, who does that? What did you do?
Well, I had the idea. I mean, the way to do it, look, the first thing I did was I asked my wife. She's American. And I remember one morning I asked her, what if I quit Microsoft today? Let's go to Ghana, let's do education. And she immediately said yes. And then I sat up and I said, wait, don't you think we should think about this? And it took me, I think, 1.5 years from then to actually leave the company. So, you know, the first thing it takes, you have to sort of overcome your fear to get started. I went to business school as part of managing my fear, learning how organizations function in a more complete, holistic way, and then use that to go start Ashesi University. So business school was actually central to my ability to execute. And then it was a question of pulling together the resources and pulling together the team. And so, so starting a university is like starting any other enterprise. It's, what do entrepreneurs do? Entrepreneurs question the status quo. They imagine something new. They pull together the resources to execute this new thing that they've imagined. And then they persist through a lot of difficulty to get this thing going. And that's what I did. It's no different than any other entrepreneur story, is imagining something different and finding a team of people who sort of rally around the idea. I was very fortunate to have been at Microsoft because there was a very can-do spirit in that company. And my former colleagues there supported me. As it turns out, some of the people who supported me at the time I'd made that decision, and they all told me, yes, go for it, were also thinking this is a crazy idea, but they didn't tell me, right? Which was great. And so we got started, and then it's a track record that builds confidence. You get more people to get on board, and then the rest is history.
Thanks, Patrick. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Round of applause. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thanks, Sarge.
Thank you.
It's a shining light. I've been there. It's a lovely campus. The vibe's great. Lots of initiatives. There's innovative sort of training, and people really believing in people. You've got that feeling there. So that's fantastic. Okay, so now it's your turn. Okay, Kader. I'm going to say Kader or Kader. Kader. Okay, so you also developed the African Development University in Niger. And I'm sure all of you know where Niger is. It's just a bit up from Nigeria, just in case you don't know. And it's in Francophone Africa. Yeah, I know the Stellenbosch people know where this is, but not everyone does. So just think Nigeria a bit up and a bit left. It's a big country.
Thank you.
So you've also done something. Tell us your story. Where did you come from? What were you doing? And what was the story of you building your institution? How did you do that? And what was driving you? What was the purpose?
Thank you, John, and greetings, everyone. Thank you for having me. I guess, for me, this university is really part of my own personal story. I was born and raised in Niger in a kind of very modest type of environment. We grew up in a mud house. We didn't have water, but we were happy. We didn't even know we were poor, honestly, but it was good. Growing up, I went to school. My parents were very serious about going to school. So when we came to teenage age, pretty much all my friends dropped out. That was the trend back then. But for me, it was not an option. I was almost forced to stay to school. Actually, I was forced. And then, I went there, and my dad was a teacher. My mom was staying at home. With time, my dad became a consultant. Teachers who know French, who can write reports. They work with international consultants for the World Bank and so on. So he started getting better. And by the time I arrived to high school, we really moved from this extreme situation to a more comfortable one. And then after I finished high school, I got a scholarship, went to France. And when I left Niger, I remember giving away all my belongings because I will never come back. No one ever comes back.
There's a common theme here, isn't there? Yeah.
And the parents are happy that they saved you from this place. And your role is to succeed wherever you're going and bring your siblings. That was my mission. But it was really when I was studying there in France, I was studying economics, and that's when I started discovering these notions of growth, progress, development, poverty, and extreme poverty. And I realized that Niger was really far in terms of extreme poverty. Like our proportion of population living with extreme poverty was one of the highest in the world. And I was seeing my life, my comfortable life in France, compared to the people I left behind. And it just occurred to me that it's like God took the good fortune of my generation and invested it on me. And as I was studying finance, the notion of return on investment, I felt like it was invested in me and I needed to go back, to give it back. So I took my studies very, very seriously. I finished very quickly. I went back to Niger against my parents' advice. And I started doing accounting. This is what I studied. So I will do auditing international development, trying to fight against corruption. It didn't work after 10 years, really. And like most people, when you fail, you go to grad school. So I went to grad school. And you go to business school, right? So I went to Bentley, did an MBA there, you know? And then I went to the Kennedy School to do an MPA. I thought I should still fight corruption. I still believe that one of the problems that prevent our country to move forward is corruption. So if big Nigeria, the neighbor, can afford corruption because they are big and powerful, small and weak Niger cannot afford corruption.
Well,
South Africa, you can afford corruption.
Actually, they can't.
Anyway, for me, it was not an option. So I thought I will go fight corruption from a position of power. But in the meantime, I was thinking of creating a school where if you should study accounting in 50 hours, you really do 50 hours. Because I started teaching when I came back from France as a volunteer in some schools, and they asked me to do in 15, 30 hours, something that I studied myself in France in 100 hours. So as I was fighting against corruption, I was identified by the US Embassy, got the President Obama Fellowship Program, got to the US, met one of the Ashesi board members, who invited me to Ashesi in 2014, and I went, and that's where I met Patrick for the first time. And I remember asking him advice, and he said, just start, you know. And it was 2014, so I went to the US, did my MBA and MPA, came back to Niger, started the university like crazy with no resource, nothing, no plan, actually. Just started. And it's working.
Fantastic story. Okay, I'm seeing Patrick as a common factor in here.
Oh, yes.
You know, just do it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's fantastic. Now, Christine, you come from. I mean, what's your story? I mean, and your business school, you're just starting now. You're just building up, so a little earlier stage than the others. But you've done all that work to get it going. I mean, what's your story? I mean, fantastic to hear.
Yeah, I mean, at various points, you know, I felt like you all. You know, I could be saying the same thing, or you all could be talking about what we've done in Baghdad. I came to Iraq in 2008, 2009 to work at the American University of Iraq in Sulaymaniyah, which is in the north in the Kurdistan region. And at that point, I just went to learn more. I wanted to contribute. I found out about AUIS, that's the American University. And I ended up staying for a decade there. And really, I mean, that was the second or third year the university was open. So, I mean, I wasn't really conscious of it at that point, but, you know, I was a big part of building that institution. And, you know, we did everything. We built career services, the graduate school advising. We founded the policy center. And, you know, throughout the whole time, I was doing a lot of what I later realized was kind of advancement and external relations work, identifying scholarships, partners for the university and the private sector. So anyway, when it was there that I started to imagine and think about a new program And the reason is, I mean, of course, when I was at AUIS, I saw many gaps in Iraq. I mean, they're everywhere, of course, but the main one I saw was I spent a lot of time with the private sector, and every private sector leader in Iraq from different sectors told me I listened to the same thing for several years. They all said, we have jobs for Iraqi youth, but we can't hire them for three main reasons. And those reasons were, you guys could probably guess them. I mean, English. But at the same time, really, of course, the soft or professional skills, the critical thinking. And then the second tier was kind of just like a basic business acumen. And so over the years, I kept hearing this, and I couldn't not do anything about it in the end. And because really, I mean, and of course, unemployment in Iraq, youth unemployment is massive. The youth bulge is one of the biggest in the world. There are no government jobs really left for youth. Of course, Iraq historically, all of the young people who graduated just went straight into government. That is no longer possible because the government is so incredibly bloated now, and because the youth bulge is so huge. And also in Iraq, and I mean, I'm sure this is something many of you all are familiar with, but the higher education system, I mean, it teaches very little, especially for the 21st century. I mean, because of wars, sanctions, everything the past 30, 40 years. So after this idea was, percolating in my head for the last probably 2 years, I was at AUIS at the American University. I left almost 4 years ago to plan and found Baghdad Business School, which was the name that I used to scratch on pieces of paper in my kitchen, that then became this institution or burgeoning institution. And I left AUIS for about 1.5 years. We planned. I went down to Baghdad, and really we were planning a lot of leveraging the networks that I had built over, that decade at AUIS. Fortunately, our program manager graduated from AUIS the same year I left. Abdu, he does everything. Until now, we've hired a couple more people. But I left. Then in October 2020, we opened with a pilot class of 20. They graduated, all got jobs. Our second class will graduate or finish the program next week. Also 20. Now, though, our third cohort, we have 75. So we had big growth this year. And I'll stop, but just Baghdad Business School right now is a 1-year program. And the curriculum is exactly the gap that I saw when I was at AUIS. I mean, it is 6 months of business English and like heavy critical thinking, research, writing, presentation. And then 4.5, 5 months of what's basically an introduction to business class, and with a lot of bells and whistles. We place all of our graduates in internships and jobs. And so, yeah, I mean, what I like to say now is it's working. In Iraq, things are very unpredictable and uncertain. So, but for now, it's working. Yeah.
Well done. Another fantastic story. I don't know about you, but I listened to that, and I'm just totally taken with it. I was carried away. I mean, love to do the same. I mean, maybe you got some questions. I mean, this is a chance to ask people, 3 people who've done ridiculously unreasonable things that seem to have worked. What do you want to ask? Yeah, there's a question. I think it's the gentleman from RSM, yes, whose presentation I really enjoyed. Thank you.
Who was first?
Yeah, thanks.
Christine, very impressive, basically from nothing to graduates who are competent in getting employed. Given the themes of existential challenges and everything we've been hearing at the conference, is there any opportunity at this first level of education, which has very fundamental disciplinary, right, to build into the DNA of the program these considerations of sustainability and global wealth inequality and like the kinds of big issues at a level, because one of the critiques we get in management, the resistance is, well, we have to teach disciplines, we have to teach functions, and we don't have time for that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, there were some themes over the past day that, you know, were relevant to what we were doing on a much, for us on a much smaller scale though. I mean, and Iraq is unique. I mean, every country is unique, but Iraq's situation is very challenging because of very Iraqi reasons. I mean, just with the war and conflict and corruption, which exists everywhere too, I know. But I think in our curriculum right now is so basic. I mean, and our students are really, I mean, just for example, our students that graduate, they're all university graduates with a few exceptions. They've never written anything before in their lives, most of them. They've really never read anything critically. They've never conducted research. I mean, they don't know what it means to do research. So I'm not really answering your question, but the issues that we're dealing with are really so fundamental and basic that until now, we haven't thought about these bigger issues. I think maybe we will start to this year as we expand our curriculum. Every year we're adding classes to our curriculum. So I think that we will, and being at this conference has made me think about some of these directions, more things that we should be doing, but sorry, I'm not sure that really answers your question.
But let's pick up on that. Thank you. But that's a really interesting answer, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, let's do that. But think of the context, what's being created there. How did those things get in a much more survivalist basic situation? But I'd love to know what Patrick and what you think also about this, Kader. You know, how have you integrated all this? Thanks, Christine.
Well,
great answer.
Well, for us, you know, like Kader, we felt that the issue of corruption and good governance were critically important. And so we actually built ethics as sort of the core of our institution. So it's completely woven into the curriculum, into the way the organization functions, the culture of the organization. And it's so deeply done that our students now have an honor system, the first on the continent, where they even take exams unproctored and hold each other to account. Now, so for us, this is very, very fundamental. And it's taken the shape of, you know, we have some very explicit courses that do this. We have leadership seminars, there's 4 of them that get students to think about what a good leader looks like and what the challenges of good leadership are, what the good society looks like, what the good economy looks like, and also the notion of servant leadership. Now, moving forward, we've decided that we're going to similarly build climate awareness into the fabric of our organization. So we're going to deal with climate the same way we've done with ethics. So regardless of what a student's major is or the courses they're taking, they're going to encounter content about climate and sustainability. And we're also going to demonstrate the same way we did with leadership. We're going to demonstrate climate responsibility. We've already started that, sort of even in the design of our campus. If you came to visit, you see the things that we're doing around solar energy and waste management and all of that, water harvesting from rain. We're going to do that even more and move our renewable footprint from currently 12% to 60%. So for us, it's fundamental to us. And I would suggest too that actually the work that we've done around ethics has also had a big impact on performance. Because when a student body decides that we will hold each other to account, we're on a team and nobody is given permission to cut corners, what happens is the performance rises for everybody. And so ethics and performance are very closely intertwined.
Thank you, Patrick. I mean, that's such a powerful explanation. I mean, you teach something, but how can you teach something if you're not being that thing? You know, I mean, that's the classic thing about syllabi. I'm teaching you so you know this, but it's all modeled and mirrored. So absolutely amazing stories. Now, Kader. Now, is it something, an apprenticeship you've done for him, or you've done something original here in your own way? What do you think?
It will be a very close answer to what Patrick said. Actually, we're being mentored by Ashesi University, so we're not recreating any solutions. Whatever is working there, our thinking exercise is how does that apply in the Sahel region in a Francophone setting, taking into account our own cultural context. One thing we did at the very beginning is to talk to all the main stakeholders. We went to the Chamber of Commerce, they brought all the big companies, the international NGOs, the traditional leaders, the government. We talked to all of them. What type of person do you want to see in position of leadership in this country? What are their characteristics? And one of the biggest things that came out was the ability to do the thing without someone being behind their back. So we did our personas based on that, and then we rolled back to have the curriculum that will conclude to this product. Well, it was design thinking. They're not product, but almost product, right? So,
but I say, sounds like design thinking. I mean, because I know Patrick's into all this too. It sounds very sophisticated.
Yeah.
And so you had that, and you reversed. So you had this vision of the sort of people you wanted to create. So you had started with the end in mind. You had that, and then you reverse engineered all the process to meet that. And then you integrated the academic accreditation and performance within that as well, but not as being the thing, but one of the things to provide quality. Wow, I'm blown away. I mean, how much time have we got? Morris, I saw you twitch. Morris, you've got a question. We've got time? Yeah, well, so thank you. Morris, there. Maurice Radebi, who's eating, but I saw him raise his hands. So there you are. Morris, by the way, who was a really big leader in South Africa, ran large institutions, you know, the Sasol, a great corporate leader, now leading and building Wits Business School again. Respect, man. Good.
Let's give credit to the people there. I just want to also say that I'm inspired. The three of you are doing an amazing job. I had a lot of time talking to Patrick and Kader, and their story, my sense, Dan, needs to be told extensively throughout the whole world. And we must find a way of using the PR machine of GBSN to tell it to the whole world, because it will inspire many people, the poor countries in particularly in our continent. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. So I'm going to quit while we're ahead, Nicole. That's it. Thank you very much. Okay, unless there was one more question. Oh, we do. Okay, just trying to go there. Okay.
My question is actually related to the last point raised, and it's to everyone on the panel. How important is it to get a certain accreditation, whether it is from an institution or whether from the market, because that's where your graduates are going to be participating in? And if it's important, I guess the answer is yes. How do you do it? How do you work towards that? Especially when, as a startup, you're founding something, there's so many things on your mind. So do you design the program first, get students, or do you worry about accreditation already?
Yeah, what really matters, isn't it? So let's start with Christine. Let's just run through and answer that question. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the story of our accreditation, how we've approached it, is symbolic of how we've approached other aspects of our growth, like being very flexible and basically doing the opposite of what everyone told me to do and told us to do. And I don't mean that, I mean, not doing the opposite of what Dan said, for example, but no, you know, in Iraq, unfortunately, one of many unfortunate dynamics after the invasion after 2003 was that education has become a business, and a business that is run by, you know, the mafias of the state. And This isn't being recorded, is it?
No.
Okay,
Just live stream, nothing to worry about. Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna veer away from that. I'm going back to Baghdad in a couple of days, so I'll just so about accreditation. So this relates because I mean, you know, all the private universities that have arisen after 2003 really are kind of degree factories for dentistry, pharmacy, medicine, you know, engineering. And the accreditation is really something that's also usually done sometimes through corrupt deals and et cetera, which I'm sure also happens other places, but it's everything that happens everywhere else is like overemphasized in Iraq. I mean, it's, so we initially, we have worked with the ministry. We have submitted a proposal to be an institute, which is a post. You can go after high school or after university to an institute in Iraq, get a diploma. They're 1 and 2 years. So that would be, if we do continue our struggle for accreditation, that's what we would be. However, really, we decided to, as my fellow panelists said, just start. I mean, if we had waited to get accreditation and if that was our focus right now, we would be doing nothing. And in fact, if we did get accreditation, it would probably kill us. I mean, it would suck all the life out of us, I think. Accreditation, I mean, some of this is unique to Iraq. I mean, the accreditation law is from the 90s. Which was a very statist system, which still is a statist system mostly, but it requires you to have a massive amount of land and a massive building and 5 deans and 4 department chairs and 20 professors. So for us, that's just not possible. We don't have the resources, human or financial, to do that. I mean, and really for Iraqi youth and for the market, it's not the best thing. It's not the best model. So we decided to do things backwards. I mean, backwards from how everyone else approaches higher education in Iraq at this point, and just start and build our program, expand our curriculum. Our legal cover comes from the fact that we're an NGO. I mean, we're registered as a non-governmental organization that can give certificates. So I think at this point, we're going to continue to grow and build the curriculum and not push the accreditation. I mean, we would love to have a degree. I know how important that is, but we have been able to get US government funding, to get funding to grow and build without it. I'm kind of hoping by the time we want it, maybe something in Iraq will change, or we'll do international accreditation. This is our other idea, to really look to international continuing education business accreditors for that before or instead of the national. Anyway.
Nicole, how are we doing for time? That's it. Okay, last words
so
from
sorry.
last words. No,
Sorry about
fantastic. Really fantastic. Who should we be serving, the accreditation, or should the accreditation be serving development? Let's have a go at that one. Okay, last words from these 2. Sorry, Nicole.
Well, my last words would just be that, you know, I think that what we're doing is a very rewarding journey. And the thing that makes it rewarding is to see people's lives transformed, like the individuals who come to Ashesi University. But beyond that, seeing organizations and seeing communities transformed through the work that our alumni are doing. And I think that, you know, for us, we've been doing this for 20 years. It's been very difficult at times, but in a way, the difficulties that you go through actually help sharpen you, and it makes you better over time. So, and that's my words to Kader as well, because he's at 5 years. I know what it was like when we were at 5 years, and just stay the course.
Thank you, Patrick. And Kader, dernier mot.
Donc, dernier mot en français. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so coming here, I've been hearing a lot about partnerships. I think it's the word, like with sustainability, is the 2 words I hear the most in these last 3 days. And I really wanted to invite all of us to look at the way we talk about partnership and the way we do it. And I would like to give you like one example. So you see, when we started our university, we were at your place. We talked to lots of people who were liking us, who were, come help, come if you need anything. And when we knocked at the door, almost no one answered.
Yeah.
But Ashesi answered. They actually came to Niger. They helped us. They help our students. They help our curriculum. They help us structure the university. Same thing. In 2018, I was almost dying. The university was dying. I went to a conference. I met Dan. You know, pretty much everyone in this room. I'm not even, my university as a whole is not a center of your universities. But Dan invited me to come share the story of my university. And here I met people like Maurice who will say, this is what we can do for your university, or Alice and Browin from the school who are thinking of bringing our students on board of international competition. So, you know, when we sit at our place, it's very difficult to ask for help. So come help us without us asking.
Okay, and that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, fantastic panelists. Thanks for the question. Well done. Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you, John.
Mom.
Amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so much to John